Welcome back to Yoshi Entertainment, everybody. So this is part 3, if you will, so to speak, of the 3-part series that we had concerning Pastor Jamal Bryant and Ray J. It has gotten more and more out of hand, as I knew that it would, as time has progressed. Now we're going to hit a little bit more of a serious note. Everything we've talked about has been pretty serious, but it gets even more serious and even more concerning after this last information, if you will, they let slip, so to speak. So Pastor Jamal Bryant did get onto the internet. He did an interview, once again, then with these interviews and podcasts, and he explained why Ray J reacted the way that he did, not giving him an excuse or justifying it, but he gave some more insight onto what was going on with the interview in the interview. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the infamous interview that they have been bothering us about since they started talking about it. He set up and he talked about how during that interview, Ray J said something that was, I don't want to say so bad because, like I said, we're not going to know what he actually said. We'll probably never know what he actually said. But whatever it is was so serious and concerning that allegedly his lawyers got up in the middle of the interview, interrupted said interview and said, "Oh no, you can't put that on the record legally. There will be an issue if he puts that on the record." Now, once again, we might never know what he actually said. But the fact that his lawyers were even there to begin with, to monitor, because that's what it's giving, that's what it seems like, what he was saying, that is disturbing and it's concerning. What has he gotten himself into that he needs lawyers around him so that if he messes up and he opens up too much to somebody and they put it on the air, somebody's going to be messed up, so to speak? What in the world has he gotten himself into? And again, them interrupting the interview talking about, oh, he can't say that, he can't put that on the record because legally there will be issues. Once again, that is concerning. Now, Pastor Jamal Bryant said, apparently, allegedly, according to him in this interview, now y'all know I don't, do the whole cutting and splicing of the interview thing. It's like they say, I think it's called a raw cut to video, whatever it's called. I don't do the whole editing thing. Whatever we do here, it goes up straight from what we do. And I don't blame him for saying that and having that kind of policy. Most people do, because whenever you have an interview, if you put something out there and then you splice it, you edit it, people can tell. There are people who do this kind of stuff for a living. They can tell when you've messed with, tampered with, edited a video, an interview, and it's going to come across as disingenuous. It's going to come across as, oh, you wanted to put this out there, but still there were some things you decided you didn't want us to know. You still tried to control a certain narrative, put out what you wanted us to hear, not what you really, maybe needed us to know, or what we all wanted to know, what we were concerned about. And now again, it seems disingenuous or concerning because again, what are you cutting out of the interview that you don't want people to know? And nobody wants to hear, oh, it's nobody's business. Yes, it is. If they're putting it in an interview, it's everybody's business. Their intention is to make it public, to make it everybody's business. So again, we don't want to hear none of that, oh, it ain't nobody's business. If that's the case, they shouldn't have had an interview to begin with. Now, Pastor Jamal Bryant claimed, y'all know I had to say that during the interview, that the morning after he woke up, after Ray J had did all this, unbeknownst to him, he's getting up, just going about his day, he gets on, his transportation route, whatever. People are passing him talking about, hey, are you good? You okay, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Oh, keep your head up. Oh, thank you. He's just thinking people are over here greeting him being, nice or whatever. Come to find out, he didn't been issued a whole threat and didn't even know until after the fact. Allegedly, according to him. That's how he had to find out. People were saying, oh, didn't you see Pastor Jamal Bryant? That's how he had to find out, basically, according to him. And of course, he wasn't necessarily like all shaken up about it. He was just like, I can't believe this dude really did this. Like I said before, he did issue like a statement saying that it is sad that he would respond that way. But he wasn't like, oh no, I've got to look over my shoulder now. You know what I'm saying? Now, Ray J did issue an apology. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that he would. I didn't think he had it in him. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. He did issue an apology, and he explained that he was dealing with some stuff at that moment that had him essentially crashing out. Now remember, at the beginning of the first video, I said either he was crashing out or he was clout chasing. I don't want to approach this situation with naivety and think, it's one thing, even though it's another one, because with these celebrities, they are very good at deceiving people. They're very good at manipulating the media, pushing a certain narrative. I've talked about this before. I even mentioned in one of the previous videos the phrase, the boy who cried wolf, even if he is crashing out actually right now. People don't want to believe it because of his track record, the things he's done before. That's why some of these celebrities, they're going to have to carry the L and run to God about it, because some of these celebrities have done so much to people in general in front of all the media for us to see. They've done so much wrong that we all know of, that people either don't feel sorry for them when things happen to them or don't want to believe that they're actually going through it. And speaking of going through it, once again, we don't want to approach this through naivety, so to speak. Although if it is true that he's crashing out and that he was going through something, because he mentioned, what I did was wrong, it was unacceptable. He mentioned he grew up in the church in his apology video, that he had no excuse to treat Pastor Jamal Bryant like that it was unacceptable, that he wanted to apologize again. He even wanted to be invited back, that he felt like he really wanted to change his life around. I don't know if he was really being truthful in that video. I hope he was. Because if at any moment he really needed to change his life around, it's absolutely right now, especially with the stuff that he's been alleging, being pow-powed at, and people attempting to delete his life. And also the other things that he talked about in that interview. This is where I said it's going to go a little bit deeper and more serious. I'm only going to talk about a few certain things that they discussed in that video, in that interview. He talked about wanting to delete himself. The thoughts of self-deletion, how he thought about it a lot, how he even allegedly attempted it in Mexico on a rooftop. Pastor Jamal Bryant was getting him to explain that and go a little bit deeper on that. How he apparently feels very tormented is what it seems like to me. He also talked about how essentially he don't feel safe anymore. He alleged that he walks around with a vest on, that he feels like what it was seeming like he was really trying to say, y'all, that if he slips up and says the wrong thing, decides to be a little too truthful, steps out of line, if you will, he's out of here. He was talking about different celebrities who've been, they didn't self-delete. I don't believe that. I believe they were deleted by the industry via the drugs route, the Fenty, if you will. This has happened to multiple celebrities. In fact, too many celebrities for us to sit up here and act like there isn't some kind of pattern to this, that there isn't something shady to it, because there's definitely something shady about it. He said out of his own mouth, he got to be careful because he going to end up just like one of them if he's not. Which again would lead me to believe that he has done something, he has said something, he has gotten involved with somebody or something to the degree of, now, if he steps out of line, like I said before, if he takes one step out of line, like the songwriter said, every little step he takes, they'll be watching him, like the other songwriter said, and it'll be the last step he takes if he messes up and steps out of line. Now, as I mentioned in one of those previous videos, this could have been one of two things that happened. Either he was feeling very vulnerable after everything that was going on, and he really needed an older male presence, a father-like figure. And I guess it helped that Pastor Jamal Bryant is a pastor who he could really open up to. Or he had an actual genuine come to Jesus meeting, quite literally. I gave an analogy and an example of that in one of the previous videos, that this kind of stuff does actually happen. Whichever one it was, he must have trusted Pastor Jamal Bryant with enough of his secrets or his vulnerability to spill all of how he was feeling, to really open up to him, as I said before, about some things he probably would not have said to other people. Once again, leading him to accidentally saying what he wasn't supposed to say. In the moment, he probably was feeling so open, like I said, and vulnerable, that he felt like he had to at least say it to get it off his chest, even if he couldn't put it out there. That even might have helped him a little bit. This is why I talk about God in therapy so much, because people really underestimate the power of confession, so to speak. I'm not saying that you have to go to somebody to, like what they do in the Catholic Church, or I got to tell the priest all of my business. You can go straight to God, of course. Although having someone who you can trust again, who you can confide in, who you can touch bases with, who you have confidence in to a degree, you know that they won't go and tell your business to somebody. A person who can actually lead and guide you in the right direction because they've either been where you've been, they've been through life to some degree, they know where you're trying to go, where you need to be, they can lead you there. They are sort of like a parental figure, if you will. That helps, I think, with a lot of people, even people who are older in their middle ages. Do not underestimate the power of parental presence, parental guidance. Even the person isn't your actual biological parent. Just having somebody there that is like a mother or father figure guiding you can really help sometimes. Even the Bible talks about what I was mentioning earlier, the scripture that talks about confess your sins to one another so that y'all can pray for each other, help each other. You never know who you come in contact with, what they can pray for you in order to help get you out of what you're in that you might not be able to get yourself out of. And I feel like possibly that is what Ray J was trying to do here, maybe in this interview, especially with him saying the kind of things that he was saying to Pastor Jamal Bryant. The only thing I don't like is, I've said this before very briefly somewhere if I'm not mistaken, whenever people do that kind of stuff, they really should not publicize it. Yes, we all wanted to know what was so horrible and possibly incriminating that he would act like this concerning the interview. But if he's talking about something that's serious and that deep, something that's personal, talking about how he was having thoughts of self-deletion, that's not something he needs to publicize, I don't think, unless he wants people to see his vulnerability, which still I don't think that's healthy to do. I think it's still a clout thing. That's not something that people should see. That kind of therapy type session, you know, like I said, doing the come to Jesus meeting, if that's what they were really trying to do, needs to be private, really. But we can't control that. If they decide to do a whole podcast and then put it out there, that's not something we can control as the average people just watching. They have to be the ones to decide with wisdom how to handle that. And if he decided he wanted out there, then that's on him. But again, I still don't think he should have publicized that interview. That should have been a therapy type session, a prayer session that he kept between him and Pastor Jamal Bryant. That should have been a private thing. Especially if he's talking about stuff that his lawyers are telling him he legally can't talk about or put on the air. And he's claiming that if he messes up, he might get popped, so to speak. Now, one other thing I want to talk about in this interview that they said in this interview that kind of went viral, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm going to be real honest with y'all, especially even Pastor Jamal Bryant's response. And this is why I said that I'm concerned that he went to him for this. Once again, I'm trying to be respectful of his station of a pastor. I don't believe that Pastor Jamal Bryant is an awful person. You know what I'm saying? Do I agree with everything he says and does? Absolutely not. He does many things and says many things that makes me scratch my head. And this situation, this instance, is one of those things. They got to a point in the interview, in the podcast, whatever you want to call it, where he was talking about how he sat down with Nicki Minaj. Why he did this, I don't understand. He sits down with Nicki Minaj. The video did go viral because she was talking to him like he was crazy, apparently. She was really, talking to him like he wasn't even an adult. And I'm not going to get into the conversation that they had, but what it seemed like to me, what was apparent to me, was that she was trying to talk down to him. I'm just going to be honest. I get she was calling him out for some stuff that he apparently allegedly did to her in the past. But she was definitely talking down to him, low-key threatening him. Verbally putting her foot on him, if you will, if that makes sense. And really, he was just taking it. If we're going to be 100% honest, like I said before, he was just taking it. I have expected him to break out with the, "Oh, yes, ma'am." It was just a weird conversation. That's why I said I didn't really want to get into it. It was very cringe and just really weird. It was also giving humiliation, degradation, and a little bit of emasculation. And he basically admitted in that interview with Pastor Jamal Bryant that it aroused him. That he found sexual arousal, if you will, in being degraded, slightly humiliated, talked down to. Let's just call it what it is. People want to play games. They want to be perverse and say, "Oh, it's funny." No, it's not funny. It needs to be addressed. And I honestly believe that there's a reason behind why he feels that way concerning that, and that it's a toxic reason. And then he said, he was talking about the whole dominatrix thing. And I don't want people to go down the rabbit hole, of course, but to make a long story short, it's basically women who are very dominant, who basically make men submissive, so to speak. Think the women who walk around in the tight leather with the whips and whatnot. Anyways, like I said, I'm not trying to, overly expose anybody. He was talking about this and he said, "Oh, Pastor, I'm sorry, is, the whole dominatrix thing a sin?" And Pastor Jamal Bryant responded by saying, "Oh, no, keep going." And I want to believe that he was trying to, once again, make Ray J comfortable so that he can open up, so that he could get what he had to get off his chest, create a safe space for him to talk about what he had to talk about without judgment, without condemnation. Although somewhere along the line, he should have told him, now, the marriage bed is undefiled. Okay, I can't say what you can and can't do in the bedroom with your wife. That's none of my business, as long as what y'all are doing is consented to by both you and your wife. You're not involving any third parties. There aren't any animals coming into the bedroom. Y'all aren't doing anything ungodly, watching porn right before you do the do. The marriage bed is undefiled. Now, some pastors would beg to differ. They think that you should only do certain positions. Now, I think that's between you, your spouse, and God. Once again, as long as you are both consenting to what's going on, you're not trying to force them or manipulate them into doing something they're not comfortable with, they haven't consented to, and you're not bringing any third parties, like I said, into the bedroom, the marriage bed is undefiled. We can even go so far and to say if a man who is married to his wife in holy matrimony wants her to tie him up while she's in a leather outfit and whoop him, then that's, their business. They're married. Let them do what they want to. Once again, some people would think that that's a bit much, that they shouldn't be going that far. Although this is not one of those kind of situations. This is not within holy matrimony and the confines of biblical marriage. Because I don't know if he's still married to Princess or if they're divorced by now, but Nicki Minaj is married. So for him to even have those kind of thoughts about a married woman, a woman that's not his wife, it's wrong. It's sinful. We have to call it what it is. And why Pastor Jamal Bryant didn't, confront him right on the spot about that? Okay, well, son, we're not supposed to be having sinful thoughts about another man's wife. That's a big no-no. I'm struggling to understand, and maybe he confronted him after the fact, but still, it's about what happens in the moment. You know what I'm saying? And I've said this before. We can talk about the whole interview all we want to, and after the interview, this, that, and the other. But what goes viral in the moment is what everybody sees. And we didn't all see him confront him about that in the moment. And another thing that needs to be addressed is what in the world has happened to him in his life where he finds it arousing to be degraded and emasculated. That's a problem in and of itself. And before anybody tries to say, oh, you're kink shaming, no, sir, no, ma'am. There's a difference between, oh, ew, you're into this, that, and the other, versus identifying why somebody likes something, and that it's because and due to a problem, maybe even trauma that they have in their life that they experienced. It's the perversion of it all. It's the refusal to admit that some of these people who like some of these things in the bedroom that's really toxic to do, let's just be blatantly honest, they only like it because of trauma that they've experienced that has caused them to desire these things. Now, I didn't say everything was bad to do in the bedroom. Nobody heard me say that. But there are some lines that people cross. I do believe that. And once again, it's because of trauma. Now, many people will not agree with the idea that I just mentioned, that even with the very extreme stuff pertaining to that it is possibly a result of trauma or some kind of toxic or negative mindset they've been conditioned to have from childhood, maybe somewhere in their adulthood. But we can agree to disagree. Once again, if it is true that he really is losing his grip on his mental state and he needs that kind of help, because he was really talking to Pastor Jamal Bryant like I'm just saying what it seemed like to me. He was scared for his life, talking about the PPP, Pastor Protection Program. And if it's that bad, he needs to be talking to God. He needs to be running to God, asking God for forgiveness, getting his life together for real, and asking God for protection because, quite frankly, like I said, from what I can just see, from what it looks like to me, from what I could ascertain, from the way he was talking about what he was talking about, whatever he didn't got himself involved in, whatever he's done, he's going to have to take accountability for it. And only God can help him. Only God can protect him now. Whether or not anybody wants to believe that, I do believe people need to keep him in their prayers. Once again, I tried to not approach this situation with naivety because a lot of people were once again saying that they felt like he was just clout chasing. Once again, that this was like a boy who cried wolf because of his track record, so to speak. But they still need to be, all these celebrities need to be in somebody's prayers. One of those people that the Bible talks about, whose prayers availeth. Yeah, they need to be in that person's prayers. Those kind of people need to be praying for these people. And those are the kind of people these celebrities need to be going to. But they got to make the decision that they want to do better with their lives, like how he claimed he wanted to make. And I hope he was serious about that. I really do. Now, you all know I had to go to the comment section to see what some people were talking about, how they were responding to this video. And a lot of them said some things I share the sentiments of. One person on YouTube said, and I quote, "In so many words, Ray J was either violated or participated in something that is haunting him. He will never be at peace until he says it out loud," end quote. So once again, it sounds like the trauma aspect, maybe something happened to him that was outside of his control. We've talked about trauma on this channel, the proper response to trauma, and the key things that have to be acknowledged, that have to be done, pathways that have to be taken in order to resolve and heal from that trauma. God and therapy, admitting you have a problem. Don't just know you have a problem, something happened in your past, and you never address it, because it's always going to be there. The residue, if you will, the bleed over, if you will, from the trauma of that will always be there if you never address it. Some people, like how it seemed like he was doing in this interview, they make it seem like they want help with whatever it is they're dealing with. But you can't want help from or for something that you won't even acknowledge that you need help concerning. So once again, like I was speaking of before, confession. I'm not saying tell the whole world. Sometimes it might just be between you and God and one other person who you can trust. But at some point in time, it has to be acknowledged. And what I mean by acknowledged, you have to admit that there's a problem, that something did happen, that there needs to be some kind of way that you address that and again, go about the proper ways of doing so. Another person in the YouTube comments said, and I quote, "Ray J has gotten himself into something deeper than we can understand, but may God help him to navigate through whatever it is and give him peace," with the praying hands emoji, end quote. As I've said before, there's no telling what Ray J is involved in, and we don't have to know it all. We'd rather we don't know it all. As a matter of fact, once again, maybe it just needs to stay between him and God and maybe one other person. But even that, whether he should tell somebody else, is between him and God. We don't need to know all the details, and sometimes we really don't want to. But whatever it is, once again, only God can help him with. And sometimes, speaking a little more deeper on that, whatever it may be, we don't need to know all the time, because whatever it could be might be so horrible that some people might not be able to take it. They might not be able to accept it or handle it properly. That's another reason why, once again, sometimes some of these people need to keep it between them and God, and they need to go to God to fix it. Anyways, another person in these YouTube comments commented, and I quote, "Ray J is saying, I'm successful, but my past is haunting me and I can't escape any of it. He's crying out for help and he's afraid. He's broken and rich," end quote. Broken and rich, rich and broken is the story, whether people want to believe this or not, for a lot of these celebrities. They've got all the money in the world. They've got all of the most beautiful people around them, some of the most expensive stuff, materialistic things that you can think of, things that they get to enjoy, pleasantries, luxuries that they get to enjoy that the average person would not even be able to imagine. But most of them, if not all of them, are miserable because of what they are dealing with in their personal lives. The cost that they had to pay in order to get to where they are. Nobody wants to accept this. They want to believe their favorite celebrities are living life like it's golden. Once again, some of them, a lot of them are miserable, absolutely miserable, and they contemplate self-deleting on a regular basis because, once again, what they've seen, what they've had to endure in the industry, what they had to pay to get where they are. Another person doubled down on that by saying, and I quote, "You can tell Ray J wants to be free, but his past is haunting him," end quote. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, you should never covet the lifestyle of these celebrities. You should never wish and aspire to be where they are and who they are. Because in order to be that, in order to have what they have, you'd have to do what they did, go through what they went through. And trust me, you don't want that. That's why it's absolutely absurd to me and really ridiculous whenever I hear people saying, "Oh, y'all are just jealous," as a response to people calling out celebrities for the things that they do and say, the raggedy things that they do and say, and the crazy, demonic, ungodly things that they promote through their lifestyles, through their influence. It's absolutely absurd to me because it's like, what am I supposed to be jealous of? Not being able to sleep well at night, having to watch my back, being tormented because of what I've had to go through in order to be famous. Having so much inner turmoil that even though I look on the outside like I'm kind of okay, deep down inside and behind my eyes, absolutely miserable. Like he said, wanting self-deletion on a regular basis and even attempting it sometimes. And we can even take it a step deeper, if you will, and talk about how some of these celebrities are demonically oppressed. Some of them are even possessed because of the dark forces that they have intentionally tapped into in order to get their fame and their money. Because that's what you have to do in this demonic, raggedy, behind industry. And that even goes for the talented individuals. Yeah, we've got a lot of people who are not talented, who are constantly shoved in our faces, who promote some of the most ratchet morals known to man on the face of this planet. But even the talented individuals still have to sell out, still have to do stuff that's ungodly, because that is how the industry runs. That is the game you have to play. Anyways, another person added, and I quote, "Praying for Ray J, the darkness has overwhelmed him, but it's clear it's not what he wants. May God save, heal, and deliver him swiftly," end quote. And this is what I really like about the connected body of believers. People can sit up and talk about Christians and people who believe in Yeshua all they want to, but whenever y'all go out and once again tap into these dark forces and do all kind of raggedy stuff, and now your life's all bound up, it's going to be those same people who you were talking about, who you didn't want to go to church with, that's going to be praying for you and praying you out of it. This is why I say that we should have church communities actually being a community. I don't think Black people really understand what it means to be a community. We look out for each other. And I know somebody might be saying, well, this is just a YouTube comment. But you don't know who could be behind this comment. You don't know who typed that comment. You don't know what kind of Holy Ghost power they might have behind that. All of these people who are saying, we're praying for you. In that group of people, there's somebody, remember those prayers that I was talking about? The effectual fervent prayer of the righteous man availeth much. And some people, they're serious about their walk with Christ. When they say I'm praying for you, they mean that for real. They don't say it to, be one of them kind of phrases that you end the conversation with. When they see somebody struggling, like how Ray J is right now with the things that he is struggling with, and they say I'm praying, they mean that for real. And they do it for real. There are people out there like that who exist. And once again, those are the people, the connected body of actual believers of Yeshua, are going to be the ones praying people through all this hot, crazy mess they've gotten themselves involved in. Now, this last comment that I want to draw some attention to, and then we're going to get off of this because I did not intend for this video to be this long. They called some attention to something that I didn't see a whole lot of other people, calling attention to. Remember when I was saying there's some things that they were talking about that I feel like Pastor Jamal Bryant kind of just glossed over without, addressing in the moment. But I'm going to let the comment speak for itself first, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. And I quote, "I feel like we're rushing past some 911 issues that he's expressing during this interview. He is basically telling us that his whole life, how it has played out in media, is a lie. He sold his soul and desperately wants to free himself by way of telling the truth. The fact that he cannot without suffering financially and losing his life in the process is beyond what anyone outside of the industry can imagine. Let us pray for Ray J, because I can't imagine what it takes for him to get a good night's rest or wake up and do it all over again every day. I'm in tears," end quote. Once again, this is why I keep saying that there are some things, some aspects of trauma, some things that we've gone through, he's gone through, he's going to have to take directly to God and God only in prayer. Instead of being on social media, he needs to be on his knees at this point, praying to God, asking for his help. Because some of the stuff that he has gone through, these people, these celebrities, when they're that deep in the industry, the things that they experience and see, the average person will not be able to wrap their heads around. The average people who don't see that kind of stuff and have not experienced it will not be able to handle seeing or hearing about some of the stuff that he's probably wrapped himself up into, including a lot of the church people. Some church people, they're so outside of this stuff because they are trying to maintain their saved lifestyle and their salvation, which is good. Although, like I said before, even they don't need to know it all. They need to pray for whatever it is, but they don't need to know every detail because it can corrupt people. It can mess people up in the head. And this is another reason why I don't think it may have been a good idea for him to go to Pastor Jamal Bryant, because now you're kind of getting him involved in your stuff, in whatever your mess is. And if there was a target on his back, on Ray J's back, there's probably now going to be one on Pastor Jamal Bryant's back. And this is upon the condition that Ray J is actually telling the truth, and that he is actually going to Pastor Jamal Bryant for help, that he actually does want help, and that he does want saving, so to speak. The kind of saving that only God can provide. And if that's the case, then I'm pretty sure Pastor Jamal Bryant already knew what came with the territory of this. So I don't think he's going to think of himself as a victim or placing himself in the line of fire without realizing it by doing this interview sit down with Ray J. But anyways, y'all let me know what y'all think about all of this down in the comments below respectfully. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Y'all all have a very blessed, beautiful, and safe day.